Hi, my name is Dragoon. I've been coaching for 22 years, 23 this year. I've coached U5 through U18, youth soccer, men's and women's, premier, all the way down to recreational. I've been with the high school team. I did 17 years as the men's coach and the women's coach. They gave the men's side up, and I've been with the women all 20. This will be my 23rd year as a high school math teacher and soccer coach. And I'm currently employed also as a youth coach for Charlotte Soccer Academy, so coaching a U10 team. So a little bit about me. My focus over the last probably, I want to say 7 to 10 years has been on growing coaches. It's harder and harder to find people who really want to get involved with youth kids, especially for no pay at the high school level, or volunteering and recreational. I see less and less on the female side. I don't see as many women coming into the sport to coach. And so I started driving more of my time towards growing coaches. And what I found is if I really want to grow coaches, I need to learn how to develop leaders. And I think as coaches, a lot of times we expect leadership. We even say things like, hey, be a leader and do this, be a leader and do that. If you're not a fan of soccer, that's okay. Everything I'm going to talk about today, you can apply to your teams still. But I think the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, and the U.S. crashing out, there's been a lot of question about leadership within that team and what does that look like and how does it work? And so one of the things I'm trying to focus on is developing of leadership. So my talk today is going to focus on how can you within your team be better at developing leadership, which will lead to more success, right? So the best way to do that is build confidence. And so my real focus will be on how do you build confidence and therefore see better leadership out of your leaders and even out of your non-leaders. And then how can you do that more specifically within a leadership group and or other subgroups on the team? You don't have to turn your video on. As a coach, I love being able to see people and reactions and read how are they understanding this? Is this good? Do you have a question? But, I understand not everybody wants to put a camera on in the middle of the day. So you do what you want. But it is nice to know there's people actually listening on the other end to the conversation. I hope you're all kind of with me on that. If you do have a question, I've done this a couple times in the past. I'm okay with unmuting and saying, Coach Dragoon, can you just hold on a second? I have a question, or you can pop it in the group chat and they'll take care of that for me. All right, so this is a picture of my team. We had an awesome season. This is not this past season, this is the year before. We've been to the state quarterfinals a couple of years in a row, and last year went out in the third round. We have 6 rounds in North Carolina, so high expectations for our team every year, conference championships often, and so how do we build our leadership? All right, so the first slide I have for you, if you just take 2 seconds and look at that, you may have seen one like this before. I'm going to talk more about this at the end because I want you to think, what are your first impressions of this? And then I think I might change your thought because what I thought about this at first isn't exactly what I thought about it later in my coaching career. So there's some good and bad with both images, and hopefully I can address those. For me, in this webinar, I'm going to focus on 3 big things. I think there are 3 components to building confidence. The first component is you, right? Like if you're not confident in what you're doing, if you don't, portray confidence to your student athletes, if you don't have that, then that's going to be hard for them to not pick up on. That doesn't mean you can't be vulnerable or make mistakes or take accountability for those, right? But you still need to be confident. If you're completely unsure, it's going to be hard for them to trust and follow and believe in you in those big moments, or even in the small moments. I wrote big beliefs and small beliefs. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about goals. I'm going to use the word beliefs. And I'm going to focus in on what is the difference between those two and which ones do I think you need to focus on more or less? And is it possible to focus on some and lead to others? And then I'm going to talk about big pressure, small pressure, right? Like we have big pressure situations, we have small pressure situations, and you want confidence in the big pressure situations. But the question is, are you really educating and developing and modeling confidence in the small pressure situations? Because if you're not going to build the confidence they need for the big pressure situations. You're just going to expect it. It's not going to be there. So those are the things I'm going to focus on there. So I'm going to lead with a little credit to a friend of mine, Paul Payne. He is with the United Soccer Coaches Association. He was actually one of my educators in my national course. I have a national, advanced national premier course, licensure, and he was just giving a talk probably a month ago in Greensboro. And one of the things he was talking about within leadership was here. Leadership is not about a title or designation, it's about impact, influence, and inspiration. Those things are so critical, right? That this is where that whole confidence from you matters. You have to recognize why you're really coaching. You want to make an impact on kids. You want to influence these young kids, and you want to inspire these young kids. And that is not only the core of leadership, but in my opinion, if you fall back on those three core things as much as possible, you will be able to build confidence in your players. Because if you're inspiring them, they're going to develop confidence. If you're influencing them properly, right, in a positive way, then you're going to be able to focus in on confidence, and you'll be able to measure that impact post-influence and inspiration, right? You'll be able to see that impact. So those are things that I really think are critical. And really you want to create a leadership team that wants to impact and influence and inspire the rest of their team. I think a lot of times our student athletes think of leaders as people who bark orders or tell people what to do or make sure the equipment's cleaned up. Like, it's really their job to influence their team, right? To be proud and to give full effort. It's their job to impact the team by giving their full effort and showing up on time and fulfilling commitments. And it's their job to inspire their team by having belief, right? And so big belief and small belief. So I'm going to start with big beliefs, right? Big beliefs are long-term, right? Not just goals, but big beliefs. Like, we believe we can win the conference. We believe we can win every game. Winning a game is a big belief, right? Like, it's not a small one, right? Because you really can't control the outcomes of matches, even when you're supposed to win. U.S. women's national team should not be going out in the round of 16, right? So, but they did. The German national team is the number 2 ranked team in the world, and they went out in the group stages of the World Cup, right? So winning a game is a big belief, right? Those are hard to control and hard for students to develop. And student athletes don't grab big beliefs right away. They're hard to measure, right? So they're long-term. They're hard to measure. Like, I don't know if we're going to win the game until the end of the game. I don't know if we're going to win a conference till the end of the season. I don't know if we're going to win a state championship until the very end. They take longer to measure, and they're more challenging to measure, right? They also contain high pressure, right? Winning a game, winning a conference, winning a state championship, tons of pressure, high pressure related with that, right? And then the length of the process, right? You're going to go through massive ups and downs in a season, right? And during that time, it's easy for student athletes or players to get into the big belief, but also lose the big belief, right? So they go through the highs and lows of I believe or I don't believe. It's hard for them to sustain that. And your best leaders will be able to do that. But you may never even have those best leaders, right? You want them, but there's so few of them. To say that every high school is going to have a team that's going to have some great leaders on it, like, they're great compared to what I have available, compared to other high school athletes, but really, how great are they, right? We're in the process of developing leaders, and so we need to think about big beliefs, right? Are those things we can really focus in on, or do we want to develop those over the long run? Small beliefs. These are consumable for athletes. These are quickly measurable by athletes. They involve low pressure, right? And they build investment and trust, right? What are small beliefs, right? I can make, 10, 15 runs down the sideline and join the attack, I can get crosses in front of the frame. If I go off script and go another sport, right? Like, coach, I can know the plays, for the football game. Like, I'm going to know exactly where I need to go in every play. All right. So am I going to be able to necessarily knock the other guy down? I don't know, but I'm going to know what I'm supposed to do. Right. They're smaller, they're consumable. I can believe that I'm going to be able to run a good training session, but I don't necessarily, a big belief would be I'm going to be able to coach the team to win a game. Right. And so even coaches have small beliefs and big beliefs, I think. And I think you need to focus on the small beliefs with your players, with your leadership group, and with small groups. Okay. So small beliefs are really easier to work on. They build trust and build investment. Okay. So how do I create these small beliefs? All right. I'm going to get to how to create the subgroups, and then, how to kind of implement stuff that will do that. But as a quick example, just spending some time with my strikers. Last 20 minutes of training, I get them on my own, right? And so I'm putting a 10, 15-minute training session together just for my strikers, right? Where I'm encouraging them, I'm putting them in the scenarios they need to be in, I'm giving them opportunities to be successful, and it's low pressure, right? The whole team isn't involved. Doesn't involve everybody else. It's a training session. It's not a match, right? They don't have to score to win anything. They're scoring to work on things. Those are ways that you build confidence. But if I don't ever take 15, 20 minutes once a week or once every other week just to work with those strikers, put them in those scenarios, let them be successful in those lighter scenarios, are they really going to have big belief that they can score goals in critical moments in games, right? And so that also gives them smaller objectives for matches. If I'm with them in that little quality time, I can set small objectives like, hey, we need you to get off 3 crosses today. First half, got to find 3 crosses. Hey, today I need you to get at least 2 shots on frame. Like, it's measurable, it's small. I didn't say score a goal, I didn't say win a game. So again, smaller, low pressure will allow you to build to bigger pressure stuff. And so for me, I think the coach sets big beliefs in our minds, right? And then we sometimes forget about all the little small beliefs that we can build in our athletes, which will help them follow the big beliefs in that long-term roller coaster that they go through. All right, big pressure versus small pressure. This is huge, right? Because we all want athletes that want to win a game and can handle the pressure of winning a game, right? They understand the pressure of 7 minutes to go and we're down a goal and we need one to tie, or we're tied and we need to win the game to advance. Those kinds of moments are critical moments, performing in a critical moment, right? And then also like winning a game, winning a conference, making the playoffs. Those are all big pressure, right? Before the season started last year, I sat down with my leadership team and we were going to be better than the year before. And we had lost in the quarterfinals to the eventual state champions, who were in their 5th state final in a row, their 2nd state championship in a row, and we'd gotten better and they had lost most of their team. We returned to everybody. We were heavily favored. And we sat down, we said, hey, what are our goals and objectives? And, they were very hesitant to win a state championship. They're scared of that pressure, because if they write down it's a goal, that means if we don't get to it, we didn't achieve that goal. And that's a lot of pressure. And I'm not going to have performed under that. Another example of that pressure is our first tournament of the season. We went to what's called the Brittany, which is like the biggest showcase for high school soccer in the country. And there was 88 teams, right, over a 2-day period play matches. We played 2 very difficult teams. And the first night was another team we expected might make the finals. And right before the game, I'm like, girls, you need to focus in. Our warm-up, we're not concentrating. This team wants to win a state championship, and they know that we are likely the team they would see in the finals. They're going to come out hard and ready to go. We have a target in our back. We need to be prepared. Well, post-match, my leadership sits down with me and says, that's way too much big pressure. Way too much big pressure. We did not deal with that. We just wanted to go out and play a match. And then all of a sudden we know that this team wants to beat us for a state championship. And oh my God, and we just did not deal with that well. Now, obviously we want our players to be able to do with that. So Was it too early to interject that kind of big pressure? Did I really need to bring that kind of big pressure up to them? Was it enough that they already kind of knew we were going to the tournament? Could I let that be? So how I address that with my team is something that, upon reflection, we're going to reevaluate moving into next year. Do I want them to be able to want that big pressure and handle that big pressure? Yes. Did I have enough small pressure scenarios ready for them? No. No. In the grand scheme of things, that's a low pressure moment, and they didn't really handle it in the big pressure, but it was also a big pressure in that moment. So I guess understanding what kids see as big pressure and what kids see as low pressure is hard for coaches, because what we see as a low pressure moment, they might see as a high pressure moment. So I think you have to identify those things before you can really attack preparing your kids with confidence, so that they can then hit these big pressure moments. So what are the small pressure moments, right? Small pressure moments are, I'm a 20-minute a game kid. I don't start, I come on, I'm getting limited minutes. When I get out there, and the ball hits my shin and goes out of bounds, is coach going to yank me off the field, right? So I need to set some low pressure things. I'm going to receive some passes. I'm not going to give the ball away to the opponent immediately. I'm going to check my shoulder and know where I am. I'm not going to kick the ball towards our own frame under pressure. Right? I'm going to make sure I know basic things that will get me out of moments. Right? I know my correct movements. Right? Like my job when the ball's on the other side and we're defending is to move inside. Okay, I can do that. And I can do that repetitively, and coach can give me praise for that, which means now I feel like, okay, I've got some confidence in these small pressure moments, and that's kind of where I want to be at, right? So can you make those correct movements in the small pressure moments? And so making decisions from stoppages, that's a small pressure moment, right? Ball goes out of bounds, right? We have a throw in. Okay, I've got time. I can look around. I can make a better decision, right? I can communicate during that time. Again, small pressure. Like, hey, there's a man over here. Hey, I'm going to get forward. Those are all things that are, like, we would call them objectives, but they're also low pressure. I can complete them, and there's not a lot of pressure on me to do that. And when I complete small pressure moments, I build confidence to take on big pressure moments, right? You've had players in the past, possibly if you've coached in the past, that are kind of a fringe player, right? And then they get on and they're playing well, and they're playing really well. And you keep telling them how well they're playing. Their teammates are telling them how well they're playing, and they just carry that momentum. By the end of the match, they're critical. And you wouldn't have thought that that player would be the one making the cross at the end of the game, turning the ball, holding it up for you, scoring a goal even in a critical moment. And it's because they were able to successfully navigate small pressure situations. And they were able to build confidence because you were able to give them belief in those smaller moments and give them confidence in the smaller moments by praising the smaller stuff, breaking it down so they identified, here are some small things I can accomplish. They accomplished them. They know they've accomplished them, and you praising them reinforces that. So I kind of want to step away there too. I don't really have a slide for this, but there's a difference between praising players to get them confidence and players discovering confidence, right? So I think if you put a player in front of 10 cones and say dribble through, right? And that's a small pressure situation, right? Like small belief, can I dribble the cones? But is that really building confidence, right? Like, are they going to go, oh yeah, no problem. I'm going to be able to dribble the field down, no problem during a match. I don't know that it is, right? Like I can praise them for it, but they know those were cones. They know that there was no real defender there. And so really for them to start to develop confidence from the inside, real confidence, they have to have success, right? They've got to define something that they want to try to accomplish, and then they need to be successful at it. Dribbling through cones is only going to go so far, right? Even in a training session, scoring in a training session where we've designed the moment for them to be able to bury the ball in the back of the net, maybe there's no goalkeeper there, or we've kind of created areas where it's easy to score goals. They know that. They know that's not a match. And so ultimately they have to find success in pressure situations. small and large. And you can start with small. So that's why small beliefs and small pressure are really like go together, right? So if you can set up small beliefs like I want to have 3 or 4 crosses in a match, and then in the match, like during the training, you work on it, and you praise them. And if they're successful at it, they got to be successful. They have to actually cross it properly. If they don't, the praise is going to be useless. But if they do it well in a no pressure or low pressure situation, then they're going to feel good enough to try it in the small pressure situation of the game, right? Like, coach wants me to have 3 crosses, ball comes out to me. I know I need to pull that ball back. I've done it in training. I believe I can do it. That's a small belief. They're not trying to win the game on that cross. They're not trying to win the conference on that cross. They're not going to earn a starting spot on that cross. They're just trying to complete a cross. It's pressure because they have to complete so many. We've set some goals for them and they have belief that they can do that, and then they accomplish them. If they accomplish them, my praise is only going to support the confidence they're building, right? So you build confidence through success. So you've got to be in a situation where you can be successful. Sometimes you got to start with cones, right? Like if I can't do the cones, I can't do anything. But if I can do the cones, maybe I can do it against an individual low pressure in a training session. If I can do it there, maybe it's going to happen for me in a match. And so building the moments, not necessarily throwing praise at them. A lot of times we think we can give confidence from the outside. We really can't. All we can do is control the environment with which they grow their own confidence. We need to put them in positions to be successful, and then we need to illuminate that success. Now that we can do. Like, hey, that was a fantastic cross. That's what we're looking for. Well done. Let's try that again. So you can illuminate it through praise, and you can reinforce it through praise. You need to give them the opportunities to be successful. That really builds the confidence, right? So that kind of takes me to a couple more things as to how do we put them in those positions? Like, what can we do to build confidence? Like, so, all right, I'm going to talk about using groups, okay? And I'll address individual players, and I'll address the leadership group as a core within this. But I kind of want to focus on just confidence for all your players, and then confidence more specifically for the leadership group, which really takes on most of the big pressure moments anyways. So groups, why are groups important? And then, and how do we make them, okay? And then what do we do with them? Those are the 3 things I'm gonna hit. How do we make them? And then, what do they look like? And then why are we doing it? And how do we use that? So I think you need small groups. You identify small groups with common roles within the team, right? So what do those look like? All right, I have my free kick takers, right? That's a small core group of players. 3 or 4 players that are always going to take free kicks from me, right? So I consider them a group, right? I give them individual attention in certain ways during training sessions. And I'll get to the how in a little bit, but here's some identifiable core groups. I have a PK group. I've got my attackers, my strikers, right, with my attacking center mids. My defending group, like my goalkeeper and my back line, right? My core players group, right? Those are my like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 players. They're going to start every game. They are going to have to take on the big beliefs and take on the big pressure. And in the end, they're going to have to take that on, right? So I look at them as a group. And then I've got my low playing time group, right? Those are the players who don't get a lot of playing time. They don't get a lot of opportunity. So how do I build confidence in them and make them leaders? And then there's my leadership team. Now your leadership team is probably made up of players from all of these groups. If it's a good leadership team, in my opinion, it is. That means, yes, low playing time players. Usually they're represented on my leadership team. There's representation there, right? Because it's important, because they have to be included and they have ideas and things to say and ways to contribute that are not necessarily on the field. And sometimes they're the best at off the field stuff. All right, so here's some subgroups. Now you certainly could set up any other kind of subgroup, right? And if you're in a different sport, different subgroups. I want to build on this, and if you have questions about that, you certainly can hold them or ask them at any time, okay? And if I have to go back to them, I will, okay? All right, why? Why do we need to do this? Well, it's an investment, right? If you invest in a small group of players, they're going to see that. They're going to see that investment. they're also going to be a lot more unified in a small group, right? Like my bench players, instead of addressing just one individual player and trying to build her confidence, like, as an example, and I wanted to wait to get to this, but I'm going to do it anyways to help tie it together. My players that don't see time, if we play a Monday game or a Tuesday game, we play mostly Tuesday, Fridays here. So we play on a Tuesday, right? I've got like 4 or 5 players didn't get a lot of playing time, 5 minutes or less, 7 minutes or less, 10 minutes or less, right? We do a recovery day the next day. So what does recovery day look like for us? Well, my better players are going to come in, right? We're going to, the whole team's going to come in. We may do a little video. We may do a little board walk through. We'll probably do a team yoga session, some sort of extended stretch, talk about the next day, next training session coming up, the next match coming up. And then I dismiss the players who saw significant playing time. Now you can redefine that however you want. For me, anything more than 20 minutes is significant. Anyone less than 20, I highly encourage them. I make it optional. Sometimes I don't even make it optional, but I want my 20 minutes or less players, they know they're going to have training the next day. So as soon as we're done with the massive yoga and they're part of the team and I dismiss the main group that saw playing time, I take that other group and I do a 30-minute like specific training session for those players. Right, so I take them out to the field. My goalkeeper coach is out there training the goalkeeper. I've got these players that didn't see playing time, and we're going to work on some technical skills or tactical skills that they are lacking that are keeping them from getting on the field. Now, they know, and I know, and you know, that there are some players that no matter how many of those training sessions you do, they're just not athletic enough, fast enough, technical enough, they don't have enough experience. They're just not a good enough player to really ever overcome those things in the 4-year period of time they're playing soccer at East Lincoln High School for me, or for you. But that's not what's important. Impact, influence, and inspiration are what are key. You can still build confidence, which will lead to success. It might be less success than you would like, or they would like, but success nonetheless, and leadership from those players. So getting them out there and running a training session where it's me and them, I'm totally focused on them. I'm positive with them. I'm correcting them. I'm building with them. I'm laughing and joking with them. I'm putting in care and concern with them. They're not alone. It's not one player who's not seeing playing time and needed the extra training. It's 6, 7 players. So they feel like, okay, we're together in this, right? Like I'm not the only one stuck. I need help. They need help. We all need help. And we're together and we're supporting the team together. It gives them a role within the team. They have an important role. If they're sitting on the bench, what if somebody gets hurt? What if multiple players get hurt? What if it's long-term injuries? What if we need to rest players, right? On my team, we don't ever 9-0 a team. Like in North Carolina, 9-0 after halftime is a mercy rule. We just don't do it, right? I want my players to get experience. So if I'm playing a team I can beat by 9, and we're up 1-0 30 seconds into the game, all 11 players, well, 10 or all 11 come off. And I make sure everybody gets playing time. And I know I'm going to win the game. If I win the game 3-0, it's the same as winning 1-0. It doesn't change anything, but I give my players some experience. So my players that aren't getting time in big games, I'm giving them that extra training to keep fitness and keep their hopes positive, their mentality forward thinking. Their attitude towards training is, I want to give my best effort, because they know that they're important, because they are going to eventually get some playing time. Also, they're the most important players to the players on the field. They're the cheerleaders from the sidelines. They're the ones that are constantly letting the team know they're doing a great job and they love them and to keep working hard, and that they're a part of the group too. And it keeps them positive and a part of the group and not negative. So at worst case scenario, right, they're not going to be over there whining and crying about their playing time and I hate this and I don't want to be here. And then they're a cancer within the team, right? They're a problem for you to solve within the team. Well, is there a way to build confidence and success and leadership within them so that you don't have to address those issues? And I say, yes, there is. Call them a group, and find a way to incorporate them into your team. And I got ahead of myself with that example, but hopefully that helps you, because I'm sure there's questions as I move through it that ties that in. Now, that's not the only subgroup, right? I listed a bunch of subgroups, like free kick takers and stuff like that. And I'm going to get to them in a little bit, but that's just kind of an example. Why is it important, again, to create these small groups? It's easy to create short-term goals and objectives that are measurable, right? Like if I meet with them and it's my free kick takers and we're like, okay, short term, we want to be able to execute the free kick. We don't necessarily need to score on it, but we need everybody to know where they're going and be able to run that consistently, right? So I can set short-term goals with them, right? Small belief. Let's get back to those small beliefs, right? We're setting small beliefs. Like I'm at a training session with my weaker players, and they can't pass a receive, but we run a good session and it's just them. So the passes are at their level. They're not being passed by the top players running at 100 miles an hour. It's at a pace they can handle. They see more success there. They start to believe a little bit in what they can do. And therefore, when they are in a match, and I want them to accomplish some small beliefs in a match setting and build their own confidence, they can possibly do that. And then, I want to go back to providing investment. Everything is relationship building. And I'm going to hit that hard in a little bit, but everything is relationship building. And if you do small groups, you're less likely to leave people out. We tend to spend a lot of time with our top players, and we should, because they're top players and they're important and they're playing. But we have to be able to put time in with our mid-level players that are role players and even our non-playing players, right? They all need our time too. It's a great way to control that and be sure you're investing in them. Okay, so that leads me to this, and take a second and soak that in. Now, I not sure about the beer bottle. I'm a high school coach, so I'm not encouraging that. But I know as a coach, in 22 years of doing this, 23 years of doing this, I have most definitely walked up to players and gone, "Hey, how we doing? How you doing? You doing okay? All right, let's go. Let's hit the training session." I don't even give them a chance to respond, right? Or if I do I really listen to the response? Or am I looking at the watch going, we got to start. I don't have time. If I'm going to ask, "How are you doing?" I better be prepared to receive that information and take the time to do that. And I think a lot of times we do this and we don't even think about it, right? We don't even think about it. It's not that we don't want to invest. I think you could take it this way. You can go, well, how often do you really invest in your players? You might not even ask that question. But do we ask and then kind of move on before they have a chance to reply? Do we create the setting where they can reply? Like, am I asking them in front of everybody? Do I ever pull them aside during the session? "Hey, how you doing? The session's going on, but I'm like, how's your mom and dad? Everything good? Yep. I heard about the, stuff going on with your brother. Everything okay?" Like, are we making time? And then are we listening, right? Like, are we talking? Are we doing it so it looks like we're putting in time? Are we really hearing what they're saying? So I just kind of put that up there because I have to remind myself about that. That leads me to how do we actually, what are the components of implementing all of this stuff? I'm gonna start with the big one because I think this is easy, and then I'll pop back down to the small group. Probably should do the small group first, but I'm not going to. Leadership team. Okay, so team outings, Friendsgiving, Christmas, White Elephant. Those are things that a leadership team can do. They can design, they can build, they can create, they can tell you about, they can implement, and then they can kind of reflect on and see how they did. Elementary school partnerships, right? Like, we open doors. Okay, so during our season on home game days, we're at the elementary school, 7 a.m., 7:05, and we are set up with a big speaker, playing Disney music in our jerseys, opening car doors for the, the parent drivers. Now you sort that out with your principal. But listen, elementary school principal's got a bunch of soccer girls excited about school, singing songs outside that are Disney and opening car doors for everybody. Probably going to be a win for you, right? You're going to build camaraderie among your team. You're going to give back to these younger kids and inspire them, and you're teaching them how to inspire others, right? To care about their sport. And they're spending time together, right? My leadership team also put together reading, math, and PE help. Yeah, PE help, like they would, some of the ones that didn't have a first period class or online, they would stay and go in the gym with the first period gym classes at the elementary school and play dodgeball and whatever and interact. Some set up reading where they would go over to the elementary school after school and do a little bit of reading time. Gonna have to be flexible there, right? When we do our recovery days, sometimes recovery day is we all meet at the school, and my top players who spent a lot of time playing in the matches, they're going to the elementary school for after school care, and they're reading, playing games, doing math with the kids, right? I mean, recovery is important, especially, I know in my sport, in women's soccer, there's so much club soccer. There's so much, it's like 7 days a week. Soccer. And so building recovery and teaching them that if you've just run 100 minutes the night before, we went into 2 overtimes or whatever, and you've given everything you have, you need to recover. It's okay to take a recovery day, right? If we're 5 days a week in high school, maybe even 6 with a Saturday, a recovery day and a Wednesday, you also have school. You've got that, and you need to have enjoyment in your life and be re-inspired by these young kids, and that's a part of our program. Community service, we have a tournament. We raise money for someone in the community with cancer. We've been doing it since 2008. Raise about $3,000 a year. We hand the person a check. We bring them out on the field. They get to talk to everyone at the tournament. We bring in 4 teams, play 2, double matches, and in between games of the second day, we put all the fans on one side. We bring out the past recipients, and my players all get to be a part of that. Now, my leadership team helps to plan for that, right? They help me get a t-shirt design. They help me acquire a t-shirt company. They speak to the sponsors that I already kind of have lined up. I know there's a process there. Then they learn how to acquire sponsorship. They learn how that works, right? And they design outfits for us to wear on those days. They get to meet, like they set up and help me design a way to meet the person that's the recipient and spend time with them. So that's a way. Team duties, right? Gathering information. First day, first meeting. I don't gather the information. My leadership team does. They collect all the info. They type it all up in a Google sheet for me. I don't do that. So that they can build their communication journal as well. Some of it I cut off access to after we have it, and some of it they have access to. Right? They probably don't need parent emails and parent phones, but they probably need their players' stuff. And I have a breakfast club, right? So once my leadership team is established, and side note, I did a webinar, I can't remember when, within the last year on building your own leadership team. And I know after this, I can try to provide access, or I'm sure BSN will do that for me, or for you if you request it. You can get access to all of the webinar I did before. But like, we do our leadership team very, very different. We don't have captains. We have a leadership team that's built by the team itself. And so once we have that leadership team, a way to build confidence is to have these breakfast club meetings. So every other week during the season, and then out of season, maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, they come in before school, 30 minutes before school starts. I bring Chick-fil-A breakfast or whatever. We sit down and we talk about how are things going. Do you guys have a Friendsgiving set up? Do you have some other ideas on what you want to do? What do those look like? They give them to me, and then I tell them, I reinforce those ideas with praise when they're good, when they're not good. Instead of telling them they're a bad idea, I say, okay, well, what are some of the issues they might have? And then they kind of re-examine them, and then they actually run the event, and then it's like, hey, how'd it go? And they build confidence in their ability to do that. Last year, my group added Friendsgiving. They wanted to do that. I said, what's it got to look like? How are you going to communicate it? What if someone can't make it? How's this going to work? They built it, they designed it, they put it together, they ran it. They come back, and they're like, it was fantastic. We all had a great time. What kind of confidence are they building? They're building the confidence that their teammates are going to invest in them if they have these ideas. That when they say in a game, hey, we need to be on this page, right? Like, hey, don't forget, we've got to be here, we've got to be there. Or in a critical moment, a high pressure, and stress gets to you, and you kind of, maybe as a leader, you're not positive. Maybe you're pretty negative, and you shouldn't be, but you are. Are those players going to have built a good enough relationship to be resistant to that and push through that and be okay with it and follow them anyways? right? They're trying to create followers. So how do you build those followers? Right? You put on these events. And how do you build confidence that they're going to follow you in those critical moments? Those events need to be successful, right? How are they successful? Everybody has a great time. Everybody wants to come back. Everybody wants to do them again next year. Those are ways for them to measure success and then go, hey, I think I'm doing a great job as a leader. Like we put on this Friendsgiving, everybody had a great time and it was awesome. So those are ways you can measure that. Interest of time, I'm gonna move a little quicker. Small groups, I already hit that with the bench players and the attacking group. I wanna say my free kick group, give them creativity. Now I wrote the word Patrick Mahomes and I gotta hit this. If I miss anything, I gotta say, if you have not watched Netflix, the show Quarterbacks, I highly encourage you to do it. I don't care what sport, I don't care if you hate football. It is unbelievable. I have an enormous respect for these people as human beings more than I ever did before. And what I thought was unbelievable was that every week, okay, the Kansas City Chiefs with billions of dollars on the line and winning and losing being everything, Coach Reed gives Patrick Mahomes and his offense the opportunity to come up with a couple of plays that they want to run in the game. Not the offensive coordinator, not the head coach, not the wide receivers coach, no coaches. The players design the plays, practice them, repeat them. Then the key is to get on the docket for Sunday, they have to show them off to the coaches and sell them to the coaches. Now you talk about confidence. If we can build one, we can execute it in training, and we can convince the leader of our team at the NFL level that we need to run this in a game, and we're going to be able to execute it, and we came up with it, man, you talk about confidence. Now, I see that, I just saw that, and I was like, man, I'm so glad that I kind of did that in the spring. For the first time ever, I let my free kick group work on free kicks for a month and a half. Every day after practice, 20 minutes, free kicks, free kicks, free kicks, free kicks. Do them. You run them. You design them. You sort them out. So I give them 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 20 minutes there, stay after practice, whatever. And then match day, run it. I didn't even know what they were running. I couldn't even tell you what they were going to run. And they would run it, and I'd say, what were we trying to do there? Well, we weren't successful. So they knew how to measure their success. Now, was that risky in matches? Heck yeah. It was a bold move by me, but I was trying to build my relationship with them of trust, that I would trust them that if they want to win these matches and they know that these are critical moments, that they're going to take the preparation part serious. We got closer to playoffs. I said, hey, now I'm stepping in. Show me what you want to do, and I'm going to approve or disapprove. And I did, and I would tweak it a little, and they accepted that. And it became kind of a combination. And once they got good at those, they actually said, hey, we've got a corner kick we want to run. We're not going to tell you about it. And they ran it. And they scored. And they were so thrilled. And to me, that's a big belief. We just accomplished a big belief in a big pressure situation of a playoff match, right? And that came from small beliefs and small, confidence building through small belief and small pressure. Right, which was training and regular matches and non-critical moments. And for me, I kind of am so excited I did that. Now I kind of want to see if I can do more Patrick Mahomes kind of stuff during the season. This is quick, individual. You can do the same thing with an individual that you're doing with a small group. Has the same benefits, right? Pull them aside, do 10 minutes after training with the individual, right? Build confidence in what they're doing. Pick out tactical they need to work on and help them accomplish those things, right? You can do that with small group or individuals, but I like small group as well, right? And I think we sometimes focus on the individual, not the small group. All right, back to this image. Here we go, right? Most people think the top image is horrible and wrong, and the bottom image is fantastic and correct. And I argue maybe, right? Do I think there's problems with the top one? Yes, right? Do I think there's problems with the bottom one? Yes. The problem with the bottom is that you're the one leading. That's the coach. And that can't be the coach. That has to be your leadership group at the front of that line, right? And if that's the leadership group at the front of the line, that's you up top sitting in the wagon. The key is that everyone looks at the top image and sees barking orders. But ideally, you should be able to lay down and take a nap. And they should be pulling you down the road of whatever they want to accomplish. If their big beliefs are winning a conference, they should be pulling you there. You should not be cracking the whip to get there, but you probably shouldn't be out front dragging them there either. That's the same as cracking the whip. They're both the same, right? I think you do need to be out front sometimes though, right? Like, how can I be out front as a leader? Like, and how can I demonstrate those things? For me, I go back to servant leadership, right? I'm always early to training. I always stay late. I'm always picking up the gear, setting the gear out. And my leadership team has to do all of that stuff too. They do not designate people to clean up. They clean up. They do not designate people to stay behind. They stay behind. They're the first ones to be at practice. They have to have handshakes with all the players before we even start the training session. They have to clean the bus. Now they can share that duty with each other, but that also helps them to understand how to lead from the front. You have to teach leading from the front, and you have to be the one to be there with them. If you're always doing those things and not telling them to do them, and they're always doing those things and not telling their teammates to do them, the teammates will understand that's what leadership does, and they'll expect it, and they'll want that role. If they've never had to do that, they're not going to want that leadership role. And so kind of training that is important to me. Last thing. Reflect, revisit, recommit. Reflect, revisit, recommit. Don't just reflect on your own, reflect with your players. At the end of that little small group session, or if you're working with a small group, your leadership group, you got to say, hey, what do you guys think? How do you feel about this? These are my ideas. How do you feel about them? Oh, you don't like them? Well, too bad. We have to play tomorrow at 6 and I can't change that. That's sometimes the answer, right? But when we're doing our reflection, talk with them. I mean, I've replayed every big game I've ever coached in 1,000 times, and I think I can win the game, as if I could ever go back in time and do that. But have I ever sat down with my players and said, hey, let's talk about it. What did you think? Now I'm going to tell you what to think. What did you think? Okay, well, this is what I thought. Well, how do you think about what I thought? Like, have that shared reflection, revisit. Let them fail and try it again anyways. My players could not perform the free kick. And they did it. And I'm like, please don't do that one. Please don't do that one. We're in like, I know what they're going to try to do. And they failed at it before. And I don't know if they've done any more preparation to get better at it. But you have to let them overcome that struggle. You've got to give it, and you got to give yourself a chance, right? So you got to be willing to revisit something that didn't work and do it again anyways. Maybe you got to tweak it a little bit, but revisit stuff. Don't throw it all out. And don't make them throw it out. And then recommit. Like, I think, remind yourself, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to impact, right? I'm doing this to influence, and I'm doing this to inspire. That's why I'm doing it. So I need to commit myself to that, which means I can have the big beliefs, and I can drive my leadership team to the big beliefs. And I can expect and want them to accomplish big pressure. But the reality is, I have to focus on small pressure and on small belief, right? And I've got to think beyond soccer, my sport, and think great human being. And if they become a great leader and a great human being that deals with the pressure of marriage, which is a big pressure, or having a kid, which is a big pressure, right? Or, like keeping a job, right? All those are way bigger pressures than we could ever. So, what are we really doing? And so if I'm thinking in terms of development, recommit myself to developing leaders, not demanding leaders, not expecting leaders, not identifying leaders, developing leaders, even where they may not look like they are. So I hope all of this helped. I hope it wasn't too much. I hope it wasn't nonsense. I hate sitting in CEUs, and I'm about to do that for the next 2 days. We start back to school, and oh my God, the meetings, right? So I can get continuing education credit. Hopefully it was useful. This is my contact info in case you need it or want it. Feel free to reach out. I do the best I can to reach out. I will tell you, if you try to call me and I don't answer, just text me who you are, and I'm probably more likely to call than email. I hate texting. I hate email. I'm old school. A phone has this magic thing where we can talk to each other. Sometimes we can even see each other. So why wouldn't I use that? So, and I'm way better about responding. I do try to respond to emails, but sometimes it's long-winded and I'm a slow typer. So I don't know. With that, I am done, and I know I'm under the hour time limit that I'm given. So sometimes I can go long.